Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this edition of Viewpoint. It is the end of the week, and we are going to end the week talking health issues. Tonight, to talk to us about issues related to health, we have a nurse, a midwife, to talk to us, and we have Mr. Akumbo Renard Vega. Good evening, sir, and thank you for being there.
Good evening, fellow televiewers. It's my pleasure being here. Thank you for inviting me.
It is a pleasure having you to talk to us. We are going to talk about issues relating to midwifery. Midwifery, that's a term that go with a lot of confusion when we talk about midwife. So we want to look at it in this edition with the Mr. Vega Renard Akumbo, and let's go to the first part of the program to hear him talk to us. The first part, the yes or no answer session. I'll begin with you, Mr. Akumbo. International Day of Midwife, a day worth celebrating?
Yes, of course.
He says, yes, it is worth celebrating. And we take question 2. Are we celebrating with a theme this year, or is just celebration? We go and drink and dance and all this?
There's a carefully selected theme for this year's celebration.
A theme carefully selected?
Yeah.
All right, that is his point, or those were his points of view. We'll come back to part 2 where he would talk to us on those points. If you are just joining us, you are watching Viewpoint on DBS television, and we are equally going live on our Facebook page. When we talk of midwifery, the notion that comes to mind is a woman who is involved in the process of childbirth. That's why we call it midwife. But in today's edition of the program, we have a man who is talking to us about midwifery. It may sound confusing, it may sound, contradictory at the same time. But then, let's begin by finding out from Mr. Akumbo, who is a midwife?
When we talk about a midwife, many people have the impression, since it's being termed a wife, that is obviously a woman, but that is not the case. But I want us to first of all understand what are the functions of midwife, then we'll be able to understand it very clearly. Midwife per se, as people think, is about conception, and it deals more with woman and
birth
childbearing.
Or conception?
It starts from conception and childbearing.
Okay.
That is to say, a midwife is a particular specialty and is very, very dynamic. A midwife deals with the nursing care of a woman, and also at the same time deals with the mother and child health of that woman. That is to say, the midwife's function starts from the time the woman makes the decision of taking in and to the time the woman will deliver, and the immediate follow-up of the baby's vaccination. That is to say, is a process and is a package.
Okay. If we say a midwife, and we have a man in this profession like you are, and if I call you a maid husband, am I wrong?
Absolutely, there's no name that will not accept us like health professionals, because...
But is it conventionally accepted, conventionally, used?
No.
Maid husband?
Yes, maid husband is not actually conventionally used. Yes, per se. Midwife are accepted intentionally.
But if you want to look at the etymology of that word midwife, if you want to look at the root, the root meaning of that word.
Midwives in those days were those old mothers who could actually take good care of women to deliver. You read back in the whole history books, and even in the Bible, you hear about midwifery, and this is a noble profession that originated even from the Bible. These were noble women who took upon themselves to care for women to put forth their children. That is why it was termed midwives. But nowadays, we have young, vibrant men like us, and a lot more who are even growing and aspiring to join the corps.
Okay. In an African tradition, you would not tradition, I think generally, you discover that the process of childbirth giving birth was like reserved for women, and in our culture, when a woman is pregnant, it is the affair of the women to deal with her. Do you, as a when I use the word midwife, it sounds contradictory to me because I'm talking to a man. Do you, like a midwife, have this, face this challenge of having some women feeling abnormal, uneasy relating with you, a man and a woman, because childbirth has to do with a woman's intimacy?
Yes, of course. I must say it's a very challenging thing, but we think so far so good. The sensitization we are making through education and informal training has bring the gap closer. But not the less, we have challenges facing with the Muslim communities who still have a lot of meat tied to it. But a lot more of people are actually buying the view, because some people actually have the conception that men can actually take good care of them because they don't feel the pain, they imagine the pain, so they take good care of them. So it's actually been out of place that mostly women prefer women over childbirth to take care of them. No.
Is that not contradictory? Because I would rather think that, like a woman who understood what childbearing is, who have gone through the process of childbearing, she would understand what another woman who is in front of her should be going through. You, like a man, you don't even know what it means to give birth to a child. How do you just simply, can you empathize with that woman who is in labor?
Absolutely, yes. Some women are so emotional to think that this pain is this kind of pain that I've passed through. So to say that you're crying or you're misbehaving during the labor process and delivery, it shows that maybe you were badly brought up or something. But men do have in mind that this pain we are talking about is pain we don't know. We conceive the pain in a different way, and we know that this pain cannot be measured whatsoever. That is the notion men are using to take good care of women nowadays.
Okay. Have you ever had the challenge of just a young lady getting into the delivery room and discovering a man? Does she easily open up to you? I mean, is she not feeling too, surprised that no, it's a man?
I must say,
mostly the young women, because when we have our mothers, that means nothing to them. But I mean these young girls of their age.
Yes, I must say during the preconceptional period and even the antenatal period, they are schooled, they are educated to know that their care can be offered by whosoever person they meet, whether a man or a woman. So when they fall in labor and they are coming, they have already prepared their minds before they are coming. So when they meet a man, they will not be surprised. And to the greatest surprise of everybody, I must tell you, women are very open to men when it comes to labor and delivery, because they feel that men can take better care of them, other like women. Yes, absolutely.
Because there have been cases of, women complaining that when you meet a woman, the woman shouts at you. Do you think that you're the first one to give birth? If you like, don't push. If you like, remain there. And so men are, they participate in that process more than women.
Absolutely. Like I first of all said, this pain cannot be measured. Every other pain, even if you've delivered 10 times and you're delivering the 11th time, the pain cannot be compared with the first pain you had in the first pregnancy. So some women think that the kind of pain I felt when I wanted to deliver my baby, which kind of pain are you getting now that I did not have? But men, with the empathy they have for women and the kind of imagination they think about the pain that they have never conceived, it makes them to feel for them and to actually take good care of them.
Okay. What does it take to become a midwife?
Absolutely, a midwife, like any other profession, you need to undergo a training, an intense training. This is to actually make it very clear to people who don't understand. Midwifery, like any call, you have to go a training and you need to be qualified and then certified before you can be able to practice whatsoever. And like any other profession that you can pick your toes and then you go practicing, midwifery or any medical call you deal with life. So you need to be skillfully trained in a particular train under guiding rules, and you are certified. to practice.
When they refer to you as a midwife in your society, in your community, do you feel something different, like midwife? Do you feel anything different?
When they are calling you names about your profession, it shows that you're doing well. So when I receive such names, I feel good. That's why even when I'm passing the market, you hear Uncle Bele, Pa Bele, I'm happy.
Okay, when they call you Pa Bele, it's normal.
Absolutely.
Okay, now let us continue. We want to find out, when we talk about midwifery, can we make a distinction between midwifery, a midwife, and a gynecologist?
Absolutely. A midwife is a profession on its own, but many people even confuse between a midwife, a nurse, a medical doctor, a gynecologist. But I want to throw a bit of light so that we can be able to understand. A midwife is always there with the woman, 24/7. The gynecologist only comes in to manage those pathologies or the other disabilities or other things that are more than the midwife due to their scope of training. The midwife and the gynecologist have two different scope of trainings. Then the gyne is the one supervising the midwife, which can take control and take charge of all the other things that the midwife cannot take care of.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, I wanted to find out, do we have the facilities in Cameroon that train midwives?
Absolutely. We have a lot of schools that have been proven to produce good results when it comes to training, and these schools have been carefully selected by the government and then giving them the go ahead. And most at times the government do the selection and then give these students to the schools to be trained.
Okay. Mr. Akumbo, before we continue, we were talking about midwives in this program. Every 5th of May is celebrated as International Day of Midwives.
Yeah.
We want to talk about it. That's why we're taking on question 2. And you're saying that there's a well-selected theme that you are using or that you used to celebrate this year's edition of International Day of Midwives. What is the theme?
The theme of this year is investing in midwives could save at least 4.3 million lives yearly. Why I said the theme is carefully selected, when we are talking about loss of life, is a call for concern. Where lives are being lost through which kind of means is a call for concern. But when you hear people talking about investing in something so that it could prevent further loss of life, we are not talking about 4, we are talking about 4.3 million lives every year.
In Cameroon or in the world?
In the world.
Okay.
That is a global figure, but I want to challenge you to know that it's even far more than that, because most cases are not reported. Even back here in Cameroon, we have most cases who are not reported. So that is to say, a lot still needs to be done. When a lot is done in that field to investing in midwives starts from their training, equipping them and giving them guidelines to be able to function well and then turn the train around so that more lives will not be lost, because we are already losing more than expected.
If we are talking of investing in midwives, is it another pointer to say that maybe they have been careless in their process or in the management or in the execution of their duty, their profession, their career, so much so that it leads to loss of life? Is it that some of them have been having abuses in the discharge of their duty?
Absolutely. I must say it's a very dynamic question. First thing I want to say is that midwives, they have not, for a very long time, they have not invested in midwives, and this is the real time to invest for midwives.
Before we take that question, you use the word investing.
Yes.
Can you explain what's the meaning of investing?
Okay, when we say investing, it means that you are putting effort and you're expecting results. The first thing I want us to know is that midwives deal with 2 lives, a mother and a child at the same time, and it needs a lot of skills, expertise, and a lot of equipment to be able to do so. but not the case in Cameroon because just the training system is in a way that is very questionable. You have midwives that have been trained by the
private sector,
and public sector. Even these trainings are being organized in a way you can see that absolutely there's need for it to be organized. We have those that have been trained by public health and those that have been trained by
private sector,
by Ministry of Higher Education.
Okay,
that is to say that there's a problem. It needs to be trained,
to be harmonized.
Yes, and to me, I will take Ministry of Public Health, who have all the expertise and the infrastructure in place that can better manage these trainings.
And that is why I asked the question whether we have facilities in Cameroon that can train midwives. Because the question now is, if there are divergences in the training that they undergo, who is supposed to, to bring them together? Because I understand that they fall under the Ministry of Public Health.
Absolutely. They fall under the Ministry of Public Health.
So what is the Ministry of Higher Education got to do in this?
These questions are keep coming up, but I must tell you, the trainings the Ministry of Higher Education is giving, to me, is not as compared to those the Ministry of Public Health is giving. That is to say, you can see two midwives. One will tell you, a state registered midwife. Another will be telling you, I have an HND. In midwifery. That will guide you to know that those ones having HND or HPD in the midwifery are being trained by higher education. Meanwhile, those with state registered degree and others are being trained by Ministry of Public Health. Yes.
But beyond HND, beyond the degree program, is there any other further education in the country?
Yes, you can excel up to the master's levels. But as of PhD, I have little knowledge whether Cameroon can be able to train.
Okay.
For now.
Let us come back to the issue of the theme, investing in midwives to serve lives. How do you celebrate? How did you celebrate it in Cameroon? Because it is a concept that is new to many of our viewers, that we have even a day dedicated to, for midwives. Do you people celebrate? Is it a word, in the country, is it well known, or it is still within you people, because so many people have not been hearing of it?
Absolutely, it's still very timid here in Cameroon. The other nations worldwide are doing very, very much better in celebrating this day, and the core of this day is to sensitize. But I must say Cameroon is doing well.
Who are we sensitizing? The midwives or the population?
You are sensitizing the population. And that is why the midwives are teaming up, forming organizations that can be able to lead and coordinate all the midwives and guide their practice, so that with this, they can achieve a common goal. When we say investing in a midwife to be able to prevent at least 4.3 million loss of life every year. When somebody dies from a non-communicable disease like diabetes, high blood, and others, it makes no news. But when you hear that somebody die in the process of childbirth, it becomes something very troublesome, because at no reason somebody should die for childbearing. So investing in them means that you have to put a lot of resources first to monitor and safeguard their practice. Secondly, to ensure that those who are giving this practice should be carefully trained and observed before they are certified. Thirdly, to put all the infrastructures in place. When we are talking about infrastructure, we are talking about construction. Not only the buildings, but putting all the necessary equipments in place that can facilitate. And then equally, we have a problem when it comes to referral in Cameroon. Most of the times, we hear about maternal death, which is the death of a woman as a result of childbirth.
Yes.
It is mostly because of poor referral. And I must tell you, midwives are not well organized in Cameroon. That is why we have a lot of malpractice, and some people even assume the position of a midwife, which are not midwives.
When we talk about midwifery, there is this point of, do you people get together as in groups, in associations, or you celebrate it at your various area of or in your institution where you are working? Is it kind of a network of midwives in Cameroon, or maybe a littoral, maybe how do you go about carrying out this advocacy?
Yes, we have bodies, we have associations that have been created. But I must tell you, like a Cameroon person, people are really reluctant to subscribe to
the Cameroon midwives.
Yes, the Cameroon midwives are really reluctant to subscribe to this association. And it is through this association that more awareness can be created. But to talk about the celebration is being done as an association, but for this year, I must tell you, it has not been celebrated as it ought to be.
Because of COVID-19,
Because of COVID-19, yeah.
Okay, then I wanted to, when we talk about midwives, there is this issue of, because you people should be able to raise your shortcomings. If you don't own your shortcomings, you may not progress. The issue of children missing in the course of childbirth. There is this myth that surrounds midwives, that at the moment of birth, maybe I wanted a girl child, and another woman gave birth to a boy child, and to a girl child, and my wife gave birth to a boy, and I needed a girl. I connive with the midwife, and they do the exchange of babies. The idea of theft of babies, children missing, all this. Do you people talk about it within yourselves?
Absolutely. I must tell you, when we talk about midwifery or any nursing care profession, is a vocation. Let me not say a profession, it's a vocation. That is to say, these people are actually called, they are called. But notwithstanding, we must have people who infiltrate for their personal interests. But as a midwife or a healthcare professional, your goal is life first before self-interest. For people who have the ability to mingle with children or other things in that environment to be able to make work for themselves, are people of self-interest. And I must say they have not been caught.
Okay.
The difference between a nursing profession or a midwifery profession and other professions is that life is concerned. You can play with things and you still get over them, but when you play with life, you cannot have it again. So these people must, in every situation, whether in the ministry of, let's say in the church, you must even have people who can do that. But midwives stand in good terms to denounce these ill practices. Yes. Okay.
Now let us come back to your association in Littoral here. What is the situation like in Littoral? Other midwives, are they ready to come together so that you build your association as a body, or people are still want to operate on their at their own corners?
Yes, I must tell you, here in Littoral, much efforts have been made, and people have been realizing and seeing the need to come together so that the midwifery profession can be once for all lifted up, and so that it can create more awareness. But notwithstanding, those who are not willing to partake, I must tell you, are not qualified to be midwives. Yes, are not qualified.
You use the word qualified. Are there any check mechanisms that you put in place to qualify, to check who is qualified and who is not qualified? Because we understand that when we talk of health facilities now, they exist anyhow in our neighborhoods, and when you go there, in as much as I can sell drugs, you know how they call me? I'm already a doctor. And every doctor, you find them involved in the process of childbirth. Do you have any mechanisms to check such kind of those you call they are infiltrating into your profession?
I must tell you, little is being done, and I blame the government for that.
If you don't raise your worry first, the government may not. You people, because if you don't come together as an association to let the government know that these are our worries, these are our difficulties.
Yes, I must say, like when we talk about saving life and preventing more lives from dying, is a process. For example, when we hear that somebody dies in the process of childbirth, that is a case that actually a committee needs to be created to sit down, review the case, and then forward to the district. For example, if the patient is dying in this particular hospital, is a referrer, the hospital should be able to say that this woman was referred from this and this, and this is what happened before this woman died. So this report is usually forwarded to the district and to the respective quarters, even to the ministry. But I must say, even when the reports are being given from the clandestine centers or the backyard clinics, nothing is ever done. So I must say it's very, very challenging to really say we are not creating the awareness. We do, and we report cases of irregularities, but it's just that it's not being taken into consideration.
Okay, if you were to talk to your colleagues, male and female, who are in the field, who are still feeling reluctant to form that association, what would you tell them?
What I want to say is that whether you are a nurse or a midwife, or you're a military person, or you are a journalist, or you are a lawyer, it's good to belong to your association. That is the only way you can be able to curb malpractice, share and teach each other, and then empower yourselves with the profession so that it can move smoothly. So for those who are still reluctant, I'm pleading and I'm really begging, it's good to belong. Yes, it's actually good to belong. In other countries, you cannot practice without being licensed. It's only here in Cameroon. Even those that even practice more in the quarters have not been trained. We are talking about license in other countries. When you are being trained in another country, you still need to go for certification exams to be licensed before you can practice.
But in Cameroon, that's
not the case. Yes.
They say experience is more than education.
And you know, there's what we call country medicine, traditional medicine, and then we have the orthodox. Country medicine is the practice we have here in Cameroon, particularly here in Douala, that have actually gone around to make a lot of research. You know, with country medicine, you just do anything to save a situation, whether it's bad or good. So far you save the situation, is good. If the situation, you doesn't save the situation, nobody sees as a problem. That's the case we have ourselves here in Douala. So when a woman is pregnant and is wanting to have a baby, they just do anything. If at the tail end they have the baby, even the baby is, let's say the baby is an epileptic, it doesn't mean anything to anybody because much will be hurt of what was done before they finally had that baby. So we need to cancel the fact of country medicine is actually killing us in Cameroon and Africa as a whole.
Mr. Akumbo Renard Vega, thank you so much for talking to us.
Thank you. It's my pleasure. Permit me to say kudos to all the fellow midwives here who are doing a great job, and my fellow colleagues back there in the Lobitan Bingo, and my wife in the house.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, that is all we had time for today's edition of the program. Up next will be the news in the English language with Cynthia Ngwemo. Until we meet again some other time, have a blessed evening and goodbye.
Coronavirus is not an imagination or an invention. It is a real threat that spares no one. We are already counting so many casualties the world over. The situation is serious, and we individually have the choice to scrupulously respect prescribed norms to preserve lives or die by mortgaging the lives of others. Therefore, our responsibility is strongly